And we're live. And I'm Andrew McNeil. This is my dad, James McNeil. This is Fight Club. I am acting as host today because my dad told me so, and he wants me to take the lead, and I don't really have much of a say in the matter. So now I'm the boss because that's what I was told to be. So that's what I'm doing. I'm hosting. He's laughing. This is how he envisioned it, I'm sure. So this is what we're doing.
Yep. Bull by the horns.
Yes, I'm owning it in the way that he's always dreamed of. So what we're talking about today, we've come up with three topics that we want to tackle. The first being recently the NDP leader, I'm sure I'm going to say this wrong, Jagmeet Singh, if I'm not mistaken, has proposed a plan to tax the ultra-rich, and that includes a variety of social issues that he plans to use the tax from the ultra-rich to interrupt me with.
Well, I just wanted to say NDP, right, is the new Democratic Party in Canada. For those of you who are around the world didn't know that, just a little something to help out my friends. Go ahead.
And there's that. One of our political party leaders here in Canada has proposed a plan to tax the ultra-rich. That's the foundation of the point we want to talk about. Another point we want to talk about, another conversation we want to have, I suppose, is regarding here in Canada. Again, there's a lot of conversation and planning going around the concept of vaccine passports that, from what I understand, it's starting with passports as it relates to travel, but they want to integrate these passports into smaller activities, whether it be going to a restaurant or a gym. They want to have, be able to say, no, you can't come to this restaurant unless you had your vaccine. You need to prove it. So we want to talk about that. And lastly, on a lighter note, we want to talk about very recently, there was a post on Instagram regarding a movie.
He's stalling.
I am. There's a poster for a movie posted on Instagram that included a bare female nipple, I suppose. That was, I suppose. Well, I mean, I don't imagine they would have taken it down for a male nipple. So I'm going to go ahead and assume it was a female nipple.
Yes.
So they took it down because of censorship. And then apparently there was a lot of backlash. People believe that that was a form of art and therefore should be allowed to be posted on Instagram. And in the end, Instagram backtracked and they did allow that post to go back up on Instagram because it falls within the guidelines of art. And so there's conversation around to what degree is it acceptable for art to be censored when it comes to nudity.
Mm-hmm.
So we will start with taxing the ultra-rich. In short,
he's wrong.
I am not. So basically, the idea is...
What's his name again?
His name is Singh. I'm fairly certain his first name is Jagmeet.
Jagmeet.
Singh.
For the record, we're both raving fans. So no matter where you sit in the political spectrum, I believe you are.
I am. Oh, yeah, very much so.
I'm a raving fan of this guy. I've seen some kind of unscripted videos of him. Actually, there was one handling a heckler like this.
I saw that one.
Whoa.
Yeah, he did really well. He handled that really well.
So no matter what we agree on or disagree on as far as his policies, specifically today about taxing the ultra rich, for the record, we're raving fans of this dude. We think he's doing a great job. We celebrate him, no matter how wrong he might be on this issue.
Well, that's what we're going to get through today.
Go for it.
So the proposal is because there's an election coming up. So he wants to get elected to be our prime minister. Part of his plan is that he's promising to spend billions of dollars to create universal pharmacare program, which would implement dental and mental health care programs for Canadians to be included in our free healthcare, not really free, but government paid, whatever. And basic livable income for all Canadians, starting immediately with a program for seniors and people with disabilities, universal basic income. And to try to pay for it all, they want to increase income taxes for corporations and high earners, which would expand its definition of super rich to any household with assets exceeding 10 million. More or less, they want to tax the super rich and spread it out more evenly.
Okay.
Fundamentally, that's the idea.
Yep. And your opinion is?
My opinion is yes, absolutely, that is necessary. I'll give us brief synopsis why I believe that. I think that we were all born into a world that the winners won and we just showed up. There are people that have been in control long before we got here, and we are kind of forced to play a game that we didn't ask to be a part of. And there is a wild wealth disparity in our world. And I believe that we're at a crossroads right now where we need to accept the fact that there are finite resources. Finances is one of those finite resources. And if we allow the ultra rich to hoard wealth, then there simply is not enough to go around. So if we're unwilling to take this, in some people's belief, drastic step, then the disparity between wealthy and poor is never going to change.
Okay. So wonderful. I love you no matter how wrong you are. So first of all, I love all the positives about the plan, right? Let's take care of people. Let's take care of the country. Let's support people in mental health, especially right now. I mean, my goodness, more than ever. More than ever.
Yeah, definitely.
So I 100% celebrate all of these things. The question is this the plan to achieve it? So we can agree on we want people to be happy, healthy, well, right? Canada currently has what the number one or number two highest standard of living on earth? One or two?
We've always been high up.
We've always been one or two. So we're not talking about a system that's broken here. We're talking about a system that's working. It's currently working, and this would be a dramatic shift. So it may or may not work, and everyone's going to agree with the idea of making sure everyone has enough. We want everyone to have enough. But in Canada, more than most any country on earth, everyone has enough. I'm not saying everyone, but we've got it just about as good as anyone ever has. And so you can talk about our partners at the top of the scale, because I know that's your reference point on the average income. Isn't it like Sweden? That's like right up there with us. One of those countries. I'm so geographical. Who have systems like this are actually our number one, number two competitors for who has the highest standard of living on earth, right?
Yeah, I wish that I had have gotten myself more prepared, but there are a variety of metrics that they measure for, like standard of living, for happiness, for whatever.
Yep.
And the countries that score the highest are typically the most. They fall within the guideline of the concept of socialism the most. So I believe Finland is one of them. Norway. I'm drawing a blank, but
that's fine. But we get the idea.
Yeah.
And so I'm not against it. What I'm against is creating a model that actually works against itself, a dysfunctional system. So dysfunction, what that word means is continued efforts increase the problem, not the solution. So if you're trying to wipe your windshield with a greasy rag, the more you wipe, the worse the problem gets. And so is this a dysfunctional plan or a functional plan? All right, so that's all. And I believe there's grave dangers in it. I believe the society has to be ready to accept this kind of a thing. First of all, when you mismanage this, those who have the wealth will simply say, cool, I won't live here anymore. Those who create, those who build. And if your premise was we're born as victims inside of a society that the winners are already winners and the rest of us are all victims. And I just don't buy that at all. If you study who has the wealth right now, how many families have generational wealth? The vast majority of wealth is not been inherited. People build it, people create it. And it's generally from the difficult sectors that people build something special. So I don't believe it's true to say, oh, all of us are victims, and there's a few people who have generational unfair advantages, and that's wrong. I just don't buy it. And if the science backs you up, that's fine, but I'm pretty sure from what I say. I don't want to create a system that sends all of our greatest talent out of the country. I don't want to create a system that says anyone who creates great wealth, who can create jobs, great enterprise, who can bless the planet, we're going to rob you until you leave our country. I don't think that's a wise method. And that's what I'm concerned about. And that's the kind of thing that does happen. And to say it doesn't happen is just being irresponsible. Powerful people have the freedom to say, fine, you want to play in a way that I don't think is cool? I'll move to a country where I get what I want. And as far as healthcare, right? They can afford healthcare. They can afford great doctors. They can afford, right, the standard of living that the average has here or better in another country if they wanted to.
Sure. Well, if in another country you mean the United States that doesn't have universal healthcare, then yeah, they can afford whatever they need.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be Panama, it could be lots of places.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying when you discourage people from being entrepreneurial, from being creators, from being successful, from building and creating, when you say this country is not a good place for you, they say, okay, I either won't be that creative or I won't live here. And some will say, fine, I'll stay. And I love the ones who will say, fine, I'll stay. But I'm not sure the system is well organized for that.
Well, I think for me, conceptually, I'm more concerned with the principle than I am with the immediate result. I think that it's entirely possible that you have a valid point that in increasing the amount that we tax the ultra rich, that we risk wealth or companies, whatever bigger names leaving because they feel robbed, to your point. But I don't think that these kind of changes make our country unlivable. And I think that if we create a new standard for what wealth means here, then to your point, I mean, you specifically said that wealth is built. People created, right? And so I think if people are already here, if we lose some along the way that don't want to play ball with a system that enables anyone and everyone, that evens the playing field and allows healthcare and everyone to have enough. If some people say that's too greedy for me, I don't want to lose what I have, and they leave, then that just creates opportunity for new people to step up, to create new opportunity, to create new businesses, to create new wealth, and play within the guidelines if we change them. Yeah. So I think that the opportunity to replace somebody who leaves is just as valuable as the person who has it now. So,
yeah, but that's saying that one smart entrepreneurial person's existence makes it more difficult for someone else. And I completely disagree with that. An entrepreneurial culture is the greatest path to an entrepreneurial culture, not to chase away all the entrepreneurs. So now that we have none, there's lots of room for some. No, the entrepreneurs, they're odd ducks, first of all, and they work well together. And so chasing away successful ones doesn't increase the odds of having more successful ones. I believe it decreases the odds of the next person saying, I'll do it. Everyone who's made it successful has ran away from our country. So now I want to become an entrepreneur too. I don't think the presence of highly successful people decreases the odds of someone else choosing to be a highly creative and successful person.
To be clear, that's not actually what I was saying. So, for example, one of the functions that the NDP wants to create is a basic livable income for all Canadians. And if I'm not mistaken, he first started talking about this when the Canadian government implemented a program they called, I know it was shortened to CERB, Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
What it was essentially,
the COVID thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was essentially $2,000 provided to anyone who lost their job as a result of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So you got $2,000 every month for as long as you were unable to work due to the pandemic. And when that happened, Jagmeet Singh, if I'm not mistaken, he started kind of shouting from the rooftops, we should keep this forever. This shouldn't be a COVID thing.
I see.
We should have this idea continue on long past the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I don't have the stats in front of me, but there are examples of societies that have tried the concept of universal basic income, and the results have been that someone who otherwise would not, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't go there. Somebody who let's say wants to start a haircutting business, but they don't feel confident that they can afford to take the chance. If they have universal basic income, they have a way to know, I can afford my rent, I can afford to pay myself, I can take a chance on myself, because if I fail, I'm not suddenly homeless. I think that actually does enable more entrepreneurialism.
Well, perhaps. It gets a little murky only because, What I found as an entrepreneur is governments like the NDP. I'm not attacking because I'm not educated enough on the details. But the idea of let's take care of the needy, let's take care of our people that are in need, excludes me every single time. The only reason why I'm an entrepreneur is because I'm unemployable. I've had learning disabilities. I've had emotional management issues. I don't fit inside of a box. I'm not an entrepreneur because I want to be an entrepreneur. It wasn't driven by money. It's I can't get or keep a job. That was my message to myself at one point. So I'm in this to survive, but because I'm an entrepreneur, I don't get the same rights as the employees, which are frankly the entitled group who can get jobs. I can't. Well, that's the way I felt, right? So I felt a system that says we will take care of these people is going to have holes in it that doesn't take care of some people, right? And it punishes other people. And I'm saying the system has to be carefully managed in a movement towards, right? Makes sense. But to say, okay, let's just tax the crap out of the ultra rich, everything should work out. I think it's a very dangerous model. And I'm not accusing them of having that rough thing.
Right.
I'm saying I'm concerned when you tax the super successful, quote unquote, too much, and I don't know what the number is. When you do, they simply say, great, there's other options for me. They're the ones who have the options. Now, if they're not paying tax, then I'm with you. They should pay tax. Right. But yeah, I mean, there are some super successful people who pay too little tax. No argument. Everyone's going to agree with you. Bezos would agree with you. Everyone's going to agree with you. There's some even Trump would agree. He'd say, I don't pay much tax because I use the laws. I know the angles.
And I play the game.
I play the game. I'm within the law, he said. He said, I'm within the law. What do I know? I don't even have good hair. But he said, I exploit the law. And that's the thing. When it's based on laws and systems and processes, really smart, really powerful people can find a way through that. And so who it captures is the person who's not quite there. And it's the people who are there who we're trying to say, pay your fair share. And so someone like me, who's a small business entrepreneur, right, comparatively, I might not have his lawyers, his accountants. So I might get trapped by undue tax, let's say, where the people that this is supposed to get doesn't get. And if it does get them, they might leave. So I'm just saying I'm hesitant. That's all I got on this topic. I'm hesitant because I think just going after the wealthy to take care of a larger number of voters doesn't always take care of the voters. It takes care of the politician. And so if a politician wants to get reelected, that's fine. But if they want to actually take care of the people with real solutions, it's often very difficult to get elected because you can sell some people anything, but the truth is more complex and it takes some more thinking. And it's hard to get elected with the right answers. It's easier to get elected with something that says, we're going to get the ultra rich. We're going to buy you a Bentley. Ha, ha, ha. Sit at home, drink beer. You can sell that, but it doesn't mean it's going to work.
Well, I mean, ironically, I would go the opposite way and say my perception over the years has been that the NDP, the party we're referring to here that's proposed this tax for the ultra rich, has had an incredibly difficult time getting elected on the federal level. I can't remember an NDP leader in my lifetime, to be honest.
Yeah, there were some. They went really badly
when I was very young.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't even remember it.
Oops. But I don't think it's for any reason other than it's a relatively new party to the Canadian, the older generation. It's a relatively new party. And what people are looking for is the kind of competence that comes with the right message. So if the NDP has the right message, but people don't believe they can actually pull it off, that's where the problem is. When you have here's the rigorous thought, here's the proof of management, here's the expertise, here's the muscle on our team, like this is who we are. I believe that whole package can sell. So I don't think people are anti-NDP message. I don't think people trust that NDP can pull it off.
Right.
And in the past, there has been some oopsies.
Right. And I can't particularly speak on the past oopsies. I'm unfamiliar
That's okay.
with it,
but I'm a raving fan of the gentleman we're speaking of.
No, I'm aware of that. I do think, however, that like if somebody's reason for saying I don't want to vote for this idea is because it seems like wishful thinking, ultimately, like it's not something that they're going to be able to pull off. I think personally, I like the idea of aiming at ideal, whether it seems feasible now or not.
Okay.
So I would say the ideal for me is a world that does provide. I mean, I like socialism straight up. So I like the idea of spreading out wealth and providing healthcare and opportunity for all, and wellness and whatnot. So this does work for me. Conceptually, I haven't done an abundance of homework on it, but I do like the idea of. I think in a way it's accepting the reality that I believe is the reality, that unless we make a big change, wealth disparity is never going to go away.
And it's never going to go away. And it's never going to go away. And it's never going to go away.
But I disagree, because it has in places that have adopted socialist ideals.
Okay. Good luck with that. I'm saying it'll never go away on Earth, period, because that's human nature. I believe if we spread all the money out equally, it would be back in the same hands. I just don't believe that everyone has the same discipline and money management and respect for wealth and respect for what it means and how to manage it. I just don't believe you can hand people money, but it doesn't mean they're going to keep it. And you can, I'm just saying it's not as simple as let's just take all the money from the people who have it and spread it out equally and everything's going to be perfect and everyone will be equal. People will never be equal intrinsically, yes, but never in functionality. So that's one of my issues. The other thing, and lastly, and I really want to move on.
Yeah.
Last point that I have, and you can transition any way you want. Last point I have is the government the best money manager to help those in need? Historically, no. Historically, people helping people works. Governments being handed the money to redistribute is not as effective as when people take care of people, communities, families. When there's an absence of that, when someone doesn't fit in a community, a family, they're an outcast, right? Save them, right? We need systems for that. But let me be clear for this. If you need help, my faith isn't in the government. It's in me. I'm your dad. I'm family. I'm supposed to come to you. Not say, well, good luck. I pay taxes. Maybe they'll take care of you. No. It's family, it's community, it's culture. This is the way we build a healthy society, not by taking some money from a few people and giving it to a bunch of people and giving the government the money management responsibility. I'm not convinced that that's the answer. That's my end. I'm done.
Okay, I will get the final word because I'm host today. So I had so much to say.
You did.
I think that when it comes to words that I want to say, they should come to my head faster. I think, okay, I got something. So I think that when it comes to your point about who should be trusted for helping their fellow man, I think a couple things. I will accept easily that government across the world, Canada included, government has a terrible track record. Government has been shown to mess things up left, right, and center. I'm not saying government is perfect and that we should just trust our government with absolutely everything. I wouldn't go nearly that far. But I do think that the concept of government, we kind of have to either do away with government or find ways to make our government trustworthy, because the government is an enormous part of our society. And if we can't trust them, we need to figure out how to trust them or accept the fact that government is an outdated concept. So I think that if we are going to maintain government, I think we need to focus on finding ways to make the government work for us. I think this is an example of what that should look like. I also think when it comes to the concept of helping your fellow man in terms of relying on family and community, I think that's a wonderful ideal. I also think that this is a time in human society where people are as lonely and as lost as we have ever seen. And there are more people without family. There are more people without community now than there has ever been. So the idea of relying on your fellow man to lift you up as opposed to a government body, I think is just no longer feasible.
Okay.
Universally.
Okay. I disagree. I think the reason why people are disjointed is because they've relied on government instead of thought we're a family. But I said that was my last word, didn't I? That was a minute ago.
You
go ahead.
Stinking rotten
What are we going to
liar.
talk about now?
Okay. next we wanted to talk about vaccine passports.
Yes.
So the idea is, after months of deliberation, the federal officials announced on Wednesday, just a couple of days ago, that Canada will be getting a COVID-19 vaccine passport for international travel that is expected to be ready in the fall. The certificate will be required across all provinces and will include the holder's COVID-19 vaccination history, the date they got it, the type of jab they received, the location, and that they received their shot. It's going to be available to all residents, and it will be free. But then part of people's resistance to this idea is that it goes beyond travel, or they're talking about it going beyond travel. So the vaccine passport will be implemented in places with high capacity and high rate of contact, such as festivals, bars, restaurants, gyms, training facilities, to avoid the widespread closure. Now, this is primarily in Quebec that I'm reading about. So the question is, fundamentally, the concept of a vaccine passport, is it restricting unvaccinated people, or is it enabling vaccinated people?
Okay.
So I take the stance that I believe that I think we can all safely say we're sick of the pandemic. We're sick of COVID. We're sick of the restrictions. We're sick of all of it. We want life to go back to normal. And I think that vaccinations is one of the best steps to get back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I know a lot of people have a distrust towards the government all over again, and to do with vaccines. But I happen to believe that vaccines are a part of how we get through this. And I think that the concept of a vaccine passport for me is not about forcing someone to get a vaccine. It's about how fast can we get close to being back to normal. And I think that people who are vaccinated, it makes sense that they should be able to do more things than those who are unvaccinated. If the problem is the spread of this virus, if you're vaccinated and that lowers the chance of you spreading a virus, I think that you should be essentially rewarded to be able to have something closer to normal life. And I understand that that could feel, to someone who doesn't believe in the idea of the vaccine, could lead them to feel like they're being
controlled by a government.
Controlled, yeah. They're being punished for not getting the vaccine. So I just think that personally, I think that I just look at it in the reverse. I think that you're being rewarded for being vaccinated as opposed to being punished for not vaccinated. So I'm for it. I think that it's a step that we can reasonably take to get closer to normalcy. Mm-hmm. So I'm for it.
So here's the thing. I don't disagree with the rationale, because I personally don't disagree with the idea of we as people being civil in a time of uncertainty. So in a time of uncertainty, I personally don't feel I need a mask. I personally am fearless. I believe if I got COVID, I would just chew it up and spit it out. I don't believe I need a vaccine. But if vaccine makes more sense to me because I want to travel or whatever, right? They're going to limit my rights. I'll get the vaccine. Because I'm just as fearless of a virus as I am a vaccine. I'm a fearless guy. So I don't give a flying flip. I don't need it. I don't need to not do it. But I don't want to be limited in my freedom. So I happen to be the kind of guy who I'll get the freaking vaccine and I'll carry I'll obey. Here's my passport. Now shut up. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I got things to do.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about me. We're talking about people who are petrified. They believe this is part of some plot against their rights and freedoms and against their health. They believe this is part of, if you study some of the governments that have gone horribly wrong, look at Nazi Germany, right? You had to carry papers that said, I'm not Jewish. You had to carry papers to prove that you're this or prove that you're that. Like, right. The idea of documenting citizens to control them, to create a control group of you are this side, you are that side. Mm-hmm. And the compliant people are rewarded and the non-compliant people are punished, ostracized. They're outed, they're attacked, they're maybe imprisonable or killable. Now you might say, James, come on. I'm saying there are people with these fears.
Sure.
And when you move towards Big Brother, when you move towards police state, when you move towards the government has eyes on you, when you move towards lack of freedoms, when you move towards give governments and other powerful, like who knows who's behind this? If there is someone behind it. Maybe it's just a virus and what the heck, people are doing their best. But if there's a government behind this, if there's powerful, wealthy people behind this, if there's pharmaceutical companies behind this, people are afraid of being controlled, of being manipulated, of being poisoned, of being whatever.
Mhm.
And I believe this idea of this passport is a step that is freaking some people out.
Mhm.
And it's not that I don't understand the rationale for it, but there's a time to tell them and there's a time to sell them. And this is a time to sell, not tell. And if you can convince a population to get vaccinated, do that. But when you fail, don't blame them that you failed and say, now you've got to have a piece of paper. And if you don't have it, you are now an ostracized sub-citizen who's not allowed to go to restaurants, not allowed to travel, not allowed to. We will punish you for not obeying the state. That's a move in a direction that makes a lot of people very uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I'm not saying it's not rational to say, get the freaking vaccine. We're trying to move on.
Mhm.
I don't disagree with the rationale. I disagree that the people who are the people, or the government, whatever,
Mhm.
you failed at selling people on the vaccinations. You did. Now you want to punish people for not obeying your failed sales attempt. That scares people. It makes me uncomfortable. Not that, hey, give me a passport. Give me a freaking, tell me to get a, I don't care. I'm a fearless soul. I'm not the one that's going to burn down buildings or whatever people might do. I'm not the one who's going to freak out. I'm cool, whatever. I'm fearless. But when a government starts to dictate freedoms based on compliance, it scares people. Study history if you don't understand that. I'm not saying I'm with them. I'm saying I understand them. I believe it's a very dangerous move when not sold properly.
I agree. I agree that it's a dangerous move. I just think, as you were talking, it just put a different framing in my mind of how I would propose it. I think that this could be perceived, or is being perceived, as a form of government control.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, to me, I look at it from a different baseline, in that I'm not looking at it from the baseline of being allowed to go to a restaurant is currently one of the rights that we currently enjoy. Because unfortunately, with the way the pandemic has gone, we have been going through a variety of different levels of lockdown. And so I guess the first question is, I think maybe some people they disagreed with the concept of the lockdown in the first place, and therefore they feel like we're all being punished unjustly, that there never should have been a lockdown. But regardless, to me, the fact is, with the pandemic as it is, with the pandemic happening the way that it's happening, and maybe some people don't believe, maybe they think the pandemic is made up, or whatever the case may be, it is the reality. And so the reality is 100% of the population can and has been locked down. All of us, vaccinated or not. We've all had to deal with these restrictions. So to me, calling the reward for vaccination a punishment for not being vaccinated, I think is inaccurate. I think the baseline is, we have all been the victim of lockdowns because of this pandemic. And so having essentially new rights to be able to go to these populated places is a reward, because people, if they get vaccinated, they're playing along to try to get back to normalcy. So I just look at it with a different baseline. Mm-hmm. Lockdown is baseline. Having those freedoms given back to you as a result of playing along with trying to get back to normal, I think is a reward. I don't think that not being given those benefits is not a punishment. I don't see that as a punishment. I see that as just realistic. The what's it called? The virus spreads. I mean, I think I said recently, we're starting what looks like it could be the fourth wave. And if I'm not mistaken, there was an article that said 90% of new cases are unvaccinated. So there are numbers to support the idea that unvaccinated people are more likely to spread this virus. So the vaccinated people it makes sense for them to be rewarded in such a way that they have the freedom to be in places that are fundamentally more likely to spread it. If they're less likely to spread it, they should be allowed to be in those places.
Okay, so here's my perspective on salesmanship. Rewards and punishments scare the crap out of people. That means government is big brother. The idea of a reward, bad idea. Idea of punishment, bad idea. If it was sold, as we're still in a 100% complete lockdown, and there's a vaccination exception option, right? We're in lockdown, period. And those who happen to have their vaccinations, they're exempt.
Right.
That's the exact same thing, but positioned differently.
That's more or less the way I just positioned it, no?
I know.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That's called salesmanship.
Right.
Frickin' A. You do. I said it better, like a lot.
You're so good.
The idea that this is a reward is a mistake. And you were using the word reward. That's what I was saying.
Oh, I messed up.
To say,
So you're
in my opinion,
Yes.
in my opinion, it's not a reward, nor is the you can't eat here a punishment. It's a fact. We're in complete and total lockdown. There happens to be a vaccination exception where some people are able to function because of an exemption that they've acquired, right? Salesmanship. But don't scare people with, we're the big brother. Do what we say. Or you can't eat, you can't live, you can't work. You're going down a road that's been done before, and it didn't work out too well. Next topic. We only have a couple seconds.
We have 5 whole minutes left to fight to free the nipple. All right.
4 minutes. No pressure.
The
Censorship.
Yes. So essentially, I completely misplaced my notes. Essentially, there was a post on Instagram promoting a movie. The cover of this movie had an exposed nipple of a woman, and Instagram, I don't know if it was their algorithms or if their actual team was involved, but one way or another, that poster was removed. And if I remember correctly, they said that the account that posted it was banned as well. And then there was backlash. People said, hey, that's not fair. It's art. Art has an exemption when it comes to certain levels of nudity. People fought back. Instagram caved. They reinstated the account. They reposted the post. And yet the conversation continues. So how sensitive is appropriate for us to be when it comes to nudity, especially when it comes to like the nipple of a woman? Is that something that we need to censor? Is that something that we need to shy away from? Or is that something that we can become comfortable with?
So the idea of censorship is to say we as a society have agreed on a certain amount of boundaries.
Sure.
You're not allowed to murder, not allowed to rob, rape, kill, whatever. You're not allowed. There's some things you're not allowed to do. Rules. Some kind of parameters. And it's almost like it's art's job to push on those parameters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like art is always pushing on those parameters because art is not made for color inside the lines. Color inside the lines ends at grade what? 1?
Yeah.
So the idea is, how do we manage this flow? And I think it's never going to end. We're moving farther and farther and farther into the freedom realm. Whereas Instagram right now, anyone wants to show or look at a nipple, you're going to be fine. There's veil, like see-through stuff, wet t-shirt type stuff. And then there's art. It's like, oh, as long as it's painted, it's okay, and not an actual woman. Well, people can paint really well, right? So it gets kind of silly at some point. I remember the Seinfeld, talking about the Seinfeld show. They said every week was negotiations with the censorship board. Okay, I'll swap you a nipple for a masturbation. I'm gonna, we'll do this, but we're gonna take away that. How about if we do this, but we do it with, And they said every week it was a negotiation, give and take and give and take. And the censorship has been moving constantly into giving in more and more and more and more and more. Okay, so that's the game that's been played and is being played. Here's the question though: why? Why is there censorship? If you look at some very conservative people groups, you think of Catholicism as it relates to nuns being covered in robes. You think of Islam with is it burqa?
That sounds right. I don't.
So, well, I'm just saying in some spiritual groups, and it's not limited to the two that I've just mentioned, but to have not the men, although men have certain outfits in certain religions and so on, but the women covered up to avoid that which would make men go a little bit poco loco. This is not a new idea. And so why is that there? And if it's because men cannot be held responsible, they can't be trusted, they're just animals. So women, we're going to restrict your rights and freedoms. We're going to dictate this because it's your responsibility to not turn a man on.
Right.
Well, now we've gone in a very scary direction.
Super unhealthy.
Right? Super unhealthy direction. That said, I'm not against some modesty to say, is this producing the outcome that I want? So I'll just say, just guy to guy.
Sure.
If we're, let's say we're average run-of-the-mill moral guy, we're whatever. We're not out looking for trouble. We're not a player. We're just a guy. And we see a woman who's barely dressed.
Mm-hmm.
That could turn us on.
Okay.
No?
How long do we want to talk about it? I mean, yeah, to some degree.
To some degree.
I'm attracted to an attractive woman, sure.
Sure. No, but I'm not talking about attractive. Attractive is attractive. I'm talking about immodestly dressed. That's the topic. Would an immodestly dressed woman possibly catch your attention more than a modestly dressed woman?
Yes, it would catch my attention more so.
Okay. The question then is it in the woman's best interest to attract that part of a man rather than the intellectual part of the man or the emotional part of the man, but rather the sexual drive part of a man? I mean, it's not going to go away. Let's not kid ourselves. LGBT groups, straight groups, attraction is attraction, right? So at what point is it not best, right? And I just believe we're moving in a direction where it's like there are no rules. And I'm not about control. I'm about, let's ask ourselves, is this best for everybody? Because some, like, let's just go with Instagram, since is that where this took place?
Yeah,
Instagram. So Instagram models, let's say for an example, want to get more likes, want to get more hits, want to get more whatever. But at what cost? At what cost to them? Are they in danger of what is it? Anyways, perverts. I'll just say
sure.
Scary, dangerous attention, right? And I'm just going to go say, what if they're very young and they don't, then later those pictures are out there and they're like, ooh, I kind of wish I hadn't done that. I'm not saying we're that person's parent either, right? Because that's going back to government controls.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against the idea of having some parameters, and it seems to only be moving in one direction. We're not pulling back at any point. We're only opening the vault more and more and more for, okay, full on male, female nudity, doing anything you want. And I'm like, we can, but I don't think it's necessarily best.
Well, I do. I think that I think that, I mean, I'll circle back to your original point about a lot of modesty. A lot of conversation around modesty is revolving around, the amount or ability for a man to control himself, his reaction, his whatever, to what he's seeing. And I think that,
well, right there, we're 100% in agreement. He is responsible, period.
Right. No,
right.
I'm not suggesting you were suggesting otherwise.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I mean, for one thing, I wish I had it in front of me, but I was told, and I think it maybe is something that we can openly agree on. Like, there are to this day countries in the world that still have limitations on women's attire, like the more modest societies. Yeah. And the statistics show that those societies are far more susceptible to assault, it's like night and day. Like, it's much, much worse. The more modest the country, the worse the women are treated.
That's it. Free the net. Everyone go naked immediately. Safe, not in the room. Not where I am trying to concentrate. You cover that shit up. Right. I cursed it. Censorship. Look, if that's the fact, then let's pay attention to that fact. I'm just saying it's not wrong to have some reason as it relates to stuff. Like, I honestly, I've got to turn some of this stuff off. It's like, why am I constantly seeing? I mentioned it earlier. I saw one video of a friend, like a peer, a guru, and I clicked on it, I watched it, and all of a sudden the next video is two guys beating the crap out of each other. I'm like, why am I watching an actual violent act on my phone? I don't want to see that. And so how much are we showing that isn't helping society? Like, I'm not saying people aren't responsible. I'm saying not everyone is acting responsibly. And so some wisdom might help.
I just want to throw out an idea I had while we were talking. Maybe something that could be considered for like an Instagram in this kind of situation, like to what degree do we want to implement censorship? I think to your point, like, even whether it be nudity or grotesque violence or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that like there can and should be like, so currently there are bans, like you cannot post this because it has this.
Yeah.
Right. I think that if we were to enable an option for the consumer to be able to opt into what
set their settings.
Yeah, exactly. So you can say, yes, I'm comfortable with posts that show nudity.
I think I have some of that somewhere.
I'm not sure.
I think so.
But I think that could kind of alleviate some of the pressure put on both parties to say, I am comfortable with that, or you can say, I'm not comfortable with that. And so when somebody does post something that does contain nudity or does contain whatever it is you're uncomfortable with, you just simply won't be shown that.
Yeah.
And so I think that frees the poster to be able to post what they think is art or whatever reason they want to post it. And it frees the person who may be exposed to it to be able to say, I don't want to see this, or I do want to see that. And that way both parties can essentially win to say yes.
And I want to say on the part of hey, Rudy. Sorry, everyone. I saw lots of cool comments, and we want to get better at responding to comments, right? We want to get the hang of this. Is every Friday. We plan on doing it 3:00. Did we agree on that?
The intention from next Friday on will be 3 p.m. Eastern daylight time for now, and then standard time after.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. And I'm always right. So where were we? Censorship.
No, you know everything.
Yeah, right. Come on, man, help me out here. Censorship, nipples. Where was I? What was I talking about? Oh, what I was going to say is, just to be fair to Instagram and Facebook, I want everyone to consider that they're dealing with governing bodies around the world because they're U.S. based companies, I believe, and they're doing business around the world. And every government has its own levels of censorships and so on. Yeah. And plus, they're dealing with advertisers. Big ad money might say we're not a part of a playground like that. And so it doesn't mean Instagram or Facebook executives are choosing censorship. They're managing the legalities and the money flow of their businesses. And it's more of a complex question as to whether you and I are cool, with Free the Net. But we do want to respect that they're doing their job, and everyone's wrong sometimes, except me. That said, I think I landed on, if your research is right, Free the Net, fine. Don't tell my fellow
you heard it here,
preachers.
Free the Net.
only if the data is right, that it makes a safer society.
I don't have it in front of me.
Well, then I'm not agreeing. I'm just saying. Fight Club,
in theory.
Fight Club, baby.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
And remember, I'm right.
Peace out. He's wrong. Goodbye.